Hi YouTube, Polaris Radio here, coming to you today with a little breakdown video of my remake of Carpenter Brut, Turbo Killer. I hope you enjoy. So, before I get into this properly, I just want to give a shout out to those of you who have enjoyed my remake of Turbo Killer, and also to those of you on Synthwave Producers who have upvoted me to the top post of the last month with that remake. So, with that in mind, I know a few of you have asked to see just a breakdown of it, so that's why I'm doing this, and I hope you get a lot out of it. And just a shout out in general to my subscribers who have also enjoyed. I took a little time off from making videos there, as you noticed. Back on board now, with more content on the way, so I hope this is a good comeback. So as you can see, I've got the project file open here in Ableton Live 9. All the tracks, let's just open up some of these groups, drums, bass, so I've got it all nicely colour-coded. To be honest, I don't usually do that in my own work, but I figured since this project is what I'm going to be showing you and also sharing, as in I'll share with you the project file and a few other bits and pieces. Actually, you could already find those down in the description. I've included a Google Drive link to the project file and then just the MIDI and just the stems. Just so you kind of get a whole complete picture of this track. But just for the purposes of this video, I thought the best way to go through it would just be going through all of the tracks individually in context of what part of the track or what part of the song itself that they're the most prominent in. So just at a glance, drums, there's 8 different tracks there, various things, 4 different basses, some bass arpeggios, some guitar chords, just synthesized, that is, bunch of leads, pads, choirs, and a vocoder. So let's just have a listen to, let's just play the main part of the song, just so you get a feel for it. So I wanted this remake to be just as much kind of the essence of the original track, but also a bit of me. So I use some of my programming techniques, or engineering techniques I should say, as well as trying to emulate some of the sounds that were coming through in the original. So I think we should just start with breaking some stuff down. I'm going to break the drums down first because they don't change throughout the track. So once you've kind of understood how they fall together, then you'll kind of, the only thing that changes with them is how they're programmed in. So I've got quite a few layers to the drums, so we'll start with this, the electronic drums. Now that is essentially an EDM, really heavy, a dance music kick. So there's 2 layers to it, this for the thud and then this for the click on top. The click is just to help it punch through the mix a bit, and the thud is obviously just to hit you in the chest. And the snare is just Ableton's default 707. I just put some reverb on it and a gate for that kind of gated reverb sound. The reverb, the only reverb I use is Valhalla Vintage Verb. Literally the only reverb I use is that. I think it's really versatile. And if you want the modern sound, you just flick it over to now mode. But you know, you need that 80s feel. Now the other thing going on here is this. Just a little uplift to carry you into the snare. That's something I noticed on the original track. I don't usually do it in my own work. I used to do it when I made drum and bass music a few years back, and it's still a cool technique, to the point where I might actually start doing it again in my own stuff. There's just a crash cymbal here with a heavy reverb on it, and some hi-hats from Ableton's 606 kit, just with a bit of my processing on it. I liked those because they were really electronic sounding, and I thought they went well with everything else. And then the final layer to these drums is an acoustic drum sounds, just with more processing. All of these come from this plugin here, MT Power Drum Kit 2. Really cool plugin. Donationware, so if you download it you can use it, but I recommend just donating a bit towards them because they've done a really good job of it, and these are really good drum sounds. So overall the drums sound like this. Oh, and there's toms. Of course there's toms. The toms sound like this. And this one. Now the toms, I've got two different sounds here. One slightly panned to the left, the other slightly panned to the right. So the left toms, that's from this plugin here, Hexagon 85, which emulates the Simmons drums from the 80s, and it does a pretty decent job of it too, but you've got to process it to really make them really thick and wide sounding. Then just, once again, MT Power Drum Kit for the other side. Then overall, yeah, so I mean, I suppose the common denominator there is layer acoustic sounds on top of the electronic sounds and use as much reverb as you feel like you can get away with. Oh, and one more sound is this. Just impact. Yes, which I put in places, especially during the intro here. I slam it at the same time as the crash cymbal, just to make the whole thing sound really big, like. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 layers to the drums, including the impact and the reverb snare. Yeah, so now that you understand the drums, I'm just going to collapse that group, because I think in this track the basses are probably the most important, followed by the leads, then the pads, and that kind of goes hand in hand with the vocoder. So let's jump on over to the basses. Now there's two parts to the bass. Well, there's 5 basses, but there's a sub bass is what I'm trying to tell you. So below all of the bass lines there is just a sine wave. So let's we'll go to the chorus of the track, this part. Okay, now I'm just going to solo the basses for this part. I absolutely adore those little flourishes that he's put at the end of each sustain note. Now let's just go through the 4 bass sounds, and then the ARP sound, and then how the sub contributes. Okay, so bass 1. See, that almost sounds like it could fit into a drum and bass track. Now that is Isotope Iris 2. Just loading the interface for that. It's a preset called Bass Filthy. I don't think I've done much else to that preset. But then afterwards I added Isotope Trash, Fuzz Positive, and just drove up the gain a bit on that, and just EQ'd the bottom out. I think most of these basses have the EQ taking out the bottom end because the sub fills the rest of that in. So that's the first bass. The second bass. It's quite a digital sounding bass, that one. That's Synth 1. I think it's very close to the initial preset. I just changed it to legato mode and took the second oscillator down 1 octave and turned on the distortion. And obviously more processing, very similar processing pattern in a lot of my stuff. Bass 3. Now that, I did that one because I felt like each chord in the chorus here needed some kind of sweep through it, and I thought the best way to do that would just be just a bass with a filter sweep and a high resonance. Once again, Synth 1, and more processing, and Ableton's OTT multi-band dynamics preset. Bass 4. You can hear a bit of an LFO on that one, carving the frequencies up and down. Now the actual sound here is a sample of a Jupiter 8 brass patch, just one of the low notes of it. I use that sound quite a lot in some of my own work, and it's great just to thicken up a bass sound. So those are the 4 basses playing at once in the chorus anyway, so let's just do bass and drums. Now there's the sub, which I mentioned, so I'll solo that. Now if you have a laptop or you're watching on a phone, what I'm saying is you should be watching through headphones or with a subwoofer to hear this next tone, which is just this. That is literally just Ableton's operator playing a single sine wave. So anything that generates a sine wave could do that tone. Now I know some people like to add some upper harmonics to their subs, but in this instance I didn't believe that was necessary because the other basses have so many harmonics to them anyway. Yeah. Now there's another aspect of the bass that only occurs during this part of the track. Is this thing here, bass arps. So let's solo the bass, see if you can work out what it is. Can you hear it? It's this in the background. Now I don't know if that's entirely right for the pattern, but I noticed when I was listening to the original that there was a fast moving arpeggio in the background. I mean, that's not really an arpeggio. It's kind of just, notes. But that's the closest I could get to approximating what that sound was actually trying to do. It just adds a bit more movement, during the main kind of drop, if that's what you want to call it. so that's pretty much all the basses are doing. The only addition to those is these added some power chords on a guitar tone at the end, as in this part of the song. Only because there's a guitar lead in there. I thought thicken up the rest of it with some power chords. Now those are just that's an Ableton clean guitar sound, and I'm just pushing it through Guitar Rig. So clean, it would sound like this. And it's actually not a bad emulation when you put Guitar Rig on. But yeah, I considered that a bass because it occupies the same kind of frequency range as some of these sounds do. Yeah, see, it's ultimately it just depends, you know, it just dictates what colour I make it in the mix. Yes, so that's all the bass. I think the most important thing is really the pattern that it's playing, you know. So, say in this part, let's just have a look at the MIDI. It's just doing this. Pretty simple. Where does it kind of switch up? We'll do the intro. The intro MIDI is this. As I said though, you'll get a closer look at the MIDI if you download one of the attachments to this video, because it'll include all of that. Now, leads. So there's 5 lead layers here over different parts of the track. Let's just open them up and see what notes they're doing. So the most iconic lead in this track is obviously this one. There's a pitch bend. Goes into this. So let's just break those two sounds down. So saw 1. Now you're going to notice a theme. This is in synth 1. Now a confession I have to make is that an enormous number of my sounds have been made in synth 1. So we'll listen to this one. That's a really standard sounding lead, but honestly the sound, it doesn't matter. It sounds epic. Like, who cares if it's a standard sound, you know? Like, what could be better than a massive 80s saw lead, you know? And then there's this one. Synth 1 again, but I've used a bit of oscillator sync on this one. Saw, guitar lead, organ. Now the organ part. This will also tie into parts of the pads. So the main, more iconic part, the first time you really hear the organ properly, is this. And it goes hand in hand with the chords on the organ as well. Nice simple pattern it's playing, and just beautiful nice chords as well. Now the organ sound is Expand 2, and it's using simple cathedral organ, I think, on both of them. Now the reason I've got them in different tracks, though, as you can see, I've processed them like hugely differently. Now the reason being is because for the pad sounding organ, you can see I've used EQ8 to completely really push out the high end, because I needed some of those real high energy or high frequency sounds in there. Sometimes you just need to squeeze a lot of life out of the high end of a tone, because there's often quite a few digital sounding artifacts up there which actually add a surprising amount to the track, and this is just, I just EQ'd that so it wasn't too harsh. So I just kind of roll off the lows a bit. I always roll off the highs, but I'll kind of boost them as well. Yeah, so I actually think that sounded pretty good, you know, in the first place, so didn't have to do too much to it. And it's doing some crazy stuff in the intro too, so let's play both of them in the very first instances. Which is also what it does at the end. Where else is the organ featured, really? The lead organ is also here. Yeah, so it just features throughout, playing a very similar pattern. The other organ plays chords during the chorus. Now I've supplemented that with one of the choirs, the R choir, which is also from Expand, just R choir. And that just kind of happens throughout. There's two instances where I use another one called male choir. So one is in the very intro here. And the other is right near the end, where there's this little faint melody on the choir that I really liked. But it's hard to hear, so I'm just going to turn the male choir up. See if we can hear it. Yeah, it's just the only instance in the track where you hear that little melody, and I thought it was really nice. Just added epicness towards the end. Like, there's a surprising amount of little touches in this tune. That's why Carpenter Brut is a genius, you know. Like, stunning music. So, choirs, pads, leads. I haven't really got to the this part properly yet. Actually, let's talk about that now. Okay, so a little thing happens in the final chorus. Did you hear it? Obviously you did. Some of the notes, the guitar mainly, and I've layered a synth as well, they go up a fifth to kind of harmonise with this. The guitar is up here. when you play them together. It's a really cool just way of making the end that little bit more epic. There's nothing better than two leads doing that cool harmonizing thing, you know? Now, I will point out that saying that cool harmonizing thing isn't really a musical, technical way of looking at it, but that's how I look at it. And you're watching this video, so I figured you wanted to hear how I look at things. What else we got? Effects, ARPs. See if you can hear this. So I don't know if I got it spot on, but it's definitely there in the original track too. This. Just a little sound in the background, you know? I just did that in Phonic, which to be honest was pretty overkill for such a simple little background sound, but I try to find an excuse to use Phonic in every project I can, because it's such a cool synthesizer. Now, the vocoder. We'll play the chords first, or the carrier signal, just sounds like this. Right, and then they modulate the voice to sound like this. So, the vocoder itself is just my voice saying, then just running the chords through that. Really simple, just with some, I put a chorus, TAL chorus, which is a stunning chorus plugin which goes on every single lead and bass and sound and pad and lead and bass, sound, pad, whatever else. That I cannot emphasize just enough how if you make this sort of music you need this chorus. Okay, and just a phaser. And reverb, so a bit of processing on there, and I EQ'd it before the vocoder as well. And the carrier signal, there's just a bit of a slow attack on it. It just kind of helps it fade into the word. You know, instead of being more of a hard dun, duh, duh, bo, you know. And that's persistent throughout the track. In the chorus it's doing this. And another thing I did was just have this. Just a little Vocoder Pad, which is actually just my voice stretched out. But it's effective enough. Yeah. So that's really the whole thing. So I hope you got a lot out of watching that, because it was fun to do this remake. Great fun. And so as I said before, you're going to get the project file for this. Now you might not have a lot of the plugins I've used, so the project file will have a lot of the tracks frozen in Ableton, and if you have the plugins you can just unfreeze those tracks to use them, but until then it'll play back perfectly. It'll have a bunch of the samples and everything, so some of it will play back, some of it won't, but you will need Live 9 Suite to open it. It should work in the other versions. I don't know, see how you go. But if not, I've supplied the stems as well, and the MIDI, so you can just have a crack at remaking it yourself, if you want to use the MIDI already laid out for you. So yeah, that's Turbo Killer, or my remake of it anyway. I'm sure if you saw Carpenter Brut's project file, which I haven't seen, but I imagine it'll be quite a bit different to this and a lot more involved, because I can't emphasize just enough how much I admire him and his music, so, and his production. So that's that. I hope you enjoyed this. It's good to be back on YouTube, and I will see you guys in the next video. Please like this video and subscribe for more content on the way. Until then, thank you guys.